Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hope by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So I wish that I had more to talk about when it comes to the price action on HBAR, but ultimately speaking, we are in a downtrend and the market has been reacting to the tariffs as we did expect, right? It's going to be pretty bearish over the next couple of days until we do really kind of get past these tariff discussions, until we start to see something shift in the scenery around finance itself, because so far the markets just react to the long-term view of these, which I did outline in the earlier video on the channel around XRP and what's been causing XRP to actually move to the upside. Now, do I think that, this bull run is canceled for HBAR and everything is bearish and the market is done? No, absolutely not. And I actually did give you guys my thoughts regarding the entire market cycle. I do think that this massive sell-off across the board is really kind of exaggerated too much at this current point. And I feel as if we're getting closer to that bottom. Now, again, trying to time the bottom, trying to call the bottom is just ridiculous. I tend to really kind of look at the macro trends, and it just feels as if we're really getting closer to that point where, the sell pressure is kind of exhausted and it's time to rebound. Because again, what goes up must come down, but what goes down also must come back up. So we are really kind of watching the market closely. So far, it just really kind of looks like one big sell-off before the next big move across the board for, not only crypto, but also even stocks. But outside of, just price action and discussion around, what's happening with, the charts, let's actually take a quick look at what's been happening around HBAR over the last couple of days. Number one, Grayscale. So we have here just in, the SEC has acknowledged Grayscale's filing for the Hedera HBAR ETF. Everyone is now fully focused on these ETFs. We do know that the SEC actually did delay a lot of the ETF discussions or filings around a lot of altcoins, including even XRP and Solana. And now we have the HBAR one being acknowledged. If HBAR is the first ETF to actually get approved outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, I want you guys to, really pay attention, because that's when you really want to buckle up and strap in, because we could be in for a much larger move on HBAR than we've ever seen in the history of HBAR's overall trading, data. Because again, the first altcoin to get an ETF approved after Bitcoin and Ethereum is going to be, it's going to be historical. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. So we're focused on these ETF discussions. We're focused on what's happening around these ETF discussions as well. And it seems as though HBAR has been making a lot of moves around these ETFs, which is very exciting. Now, also outside of just ETFs, there is a ton of events happening around this space, including, of course, with Hedera. So we actually have here from Hedera, they're announcing the summit, the Digital Asset Summit 2025. This is actually from Blockworks. And we have here that, this is happening next week, March 18th through the 20th in New York City. So they're going to have a booth. They're going to have a lot of discussions around Hedera, crypto, and AI, because we actually have down here that don't miss Hedera COO as he takes the stage for the panel Signal versus Noise at the Nexus of Crypto and AI, which we already know how big AI and blockchain and, well, in this case, Hashgraph is. The convergence of DLT and AI, it's going to happen in a much bigger way than what already is happening now. And I do expect this to become a much bigger talking subject over the next couple of weeks, months, and even years going forward, as AI becomes a much bigger driver around enterprise grade automation, because it is starting to get adopted in a big way. We know Microsoft is pushing it, Google is pushing it, even Amazon is talking about AI in a huge way as well. So it just makes a lot of sense. But also outside of this, when we actually look into this summit, it is one of the biggest crypto based events around the space. And of course, Blockworks being one of the largest, major media companies, if you will, around crypto, definitely helps a lot. But if we actually look into this, we could see some of the stats around this event. Number one, 150 speakers, 750 institutions, 1,800 attendees, 45 content sessions, 3 days of top tier networking, and $1.2 trillion in terms of assets under management represented. So again, definitely a huge event. We have a ton of speakers from the space, even outside of the space as well, from like trad TradFi and Web2. We know Brad Garlinghouse is going to be there. There's a whole bunch of additional speakers as well. If we actually look at some of the agenda, we could see who will be speaking at a lot of these, major stages, if you will. We have this completely broken down from the main stage to the institutional side of things, and then the investor side. But a lot of this is really kind of showing us that not only are we starting to see a big convergence between Web 2 and Web 3 and TradFi and DeFi, but we're also starting to see institutional grade adoption growing in a big way. And it's kind of crazy to see these types of events happening around crypto, even during a time where the price action isn't all that bullish and everyone is starting to flip bearish short term. I really kind of just take a step back and look at how far this space has come. I mean, to really kind of look at some of these speakers that will be at these events from like JP Morgan, BlackRock, Van Eck, all of these major hedge fund companies and asset management companies, it just shows you how the entire space has started to evolve. We're kind of moving away from the whole speculation and, hype driven side of things to more legitimate based, utility based. And that's exactly what I want us to actually get to is, the days where utility actually drives the value of these things. Because until then, everything will be manipulated. Everything will be kind of fake, if you will, in terms of the actual value on a lot of these things. But here we actually have a lot of the sponsors. Now, we do know, of course, Hedera is a sponsor here. Algorand is a sponsor. Ripple is a sponsor. Aptos is a sponsor. There's so many big sponsors at these events, as always. Hedera being one of them is just really kind of another name on the board, if you will. But look at the additional names here. Like BNY Mellon is a sponsor. If we scroll down, you can see all of the additional players here. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but you love to see it. And again, this is a very, very big event, so I'm going to be focused on it. But also talking about events, Hedera has a stacked calendar. I mean, it's kind of crazy to look at this, but look at how many events Hedera is holding this year alone. I mean, so far we've already had a few big ones. HederaCon was a huge one. Ethereum Denver as well. But here we have Hedera and Orbis 86. This is another Ethereum essentially based event. Ethereum San Francisco, I believe. This is on the 13th, so this is actually today. And then we have next week, of course, Digital Asset Summit. Outside of that, Hedera and BitGo event. So this is a big one as well in New York. On top of that, we have Hedera Hashathon, TCH Web3 ecosystem as well, Paris Blockchain Week. I mean, guys, the whole calendar year going all the way up to September is booked out in terms of major events with Hedera being represented there. So you love to see it. And also talking about, if we scroll back down, talking about that one event, this Nairobi edition event, this is actually a very interesting one because this is Hedera Hashathon Nairobi edition. And what's very interesting about this, okay, it's going to be held at the end of this month. But remember that back in October, the Nairobi Securities Exchange NSE joined the Hedera Council to expedite tokenization of securities in Kenya's capital markets. I do expect this to be brought up in discussion at this event, but it's also going to be a hackathon where we do bring on more developers. We start to really kind of expand Hedera's presence in these areas as well. I'm very excited about this. Again, these events definitely have to be focused on because it does provide a lot of growth around, the ecosystem, the network as well, brings on more developers. But this one, I'm still waiting to see some more news about this because this is something that I'm actually very bullish on. Now, again, it's just a few months back now. So I do expect to see some updates this year from this. But so far, we're kind of so early on with this. And we know that tokenization, there's still a big obstacle in the way of tokenization from the overall, regulatory side of things. Until that gets cleared up, I don't think that a lot of these major tokenization moves are going to be scaling anytime soon or making some very, very big moves as well. But outside of that, let's actually go over here to this announcement from Hedera, which was really kind of just it's an article highlighting financial moves being made within crypto, specifically the future of finance, and it's all based around DeFi. Now, if we go over here, we have the 5 pillars of decentralized financial inclusion. Decentralized financial inclusion focuses on equal access to financial systems through blockchain, benefiting underserved communities with empowerment and opportunities. Now, in terms of this, okay, the 5 pillars around all of this to become a reality. We know that DeFi is becoming a huge deal. We know even right now, if we go back over here to CoinMarketCap and we go, to the DeFi market, let's go back to the categories list here. And we scroll down to DeFi. So here we have DeFi, and it's still a 100 plus billion dollar, category. And it doesn't even include some of the biggest names here, but we do know that DeFi has always been a big piece of this space. I mean, even Ethereum, the only reason why Ethereum is as big as it is and has the valuations tied to it is because of the DeFi market on, Ethereum. If you actually look at the TVL on Ethereum, it's very significant. And it's because there's over 1,000 plus protocols tied to Ethereum. So DeFi is obviously a huge market and industry. But the thing is that we're now starting to see the convergence around DeFi with TradFi. And when we think about how this becomes a reality, well, we look at the 5 pillars. Number 1 is financial literacy, a foundation for inclusion. So in order for people to really kind of, get involved here, all right, we need to have not only a lot more educational content around DeFi, but we need people to actually start looking into these specific things, because we're not going to be able to bank the unbanked or, provide DeFi services to all these people unless they actually start to learn. So we need to have, enhanced crypto literacy and educational content so that these people can learn a little bit more and up their knowledge on what's really going on behind crypto. Because even right now, if you talk about crypto to, most people outside of the space, they still think that's one big scam. They think that it's like monopoly money. They don't think that it's real. So when we think about that, it all comes down to the education side around crypto. Now, number 2 is asset building, securing the future. And again, this is around tokenization. As tokenization starts to grow more and more, and you have platforms like, for example, Red Swan, as they're highlighting here, bring on like real estate to, the chains, that's when we start to see the big step function, in my opinion. And when I say that, I mean, that's going to be a huge move from where we're at now to, all of a sudden you see headlines around it. People start learning more about it, because once you bring on, like, say for so, the first $100 billion worth of real estate on chain, that's when things start to really evolve rapidly. And I think that that's when a lot of the big players will start to really kind of tokenize in a huge way as well. Now, number 3 is capacity building, strengthening institutions as well. So again, we really kind of look at institutional players. So we actually have here that financial inclusion isn't just about individuals. It's about equipping institutions to better serve them. Capacity building ensures banks, nonprofits, and community organizations can meet the needs of underserved communities. Blockchain-based smart contracts streamline resource allocation, improving efficiency and transparency. And yeah, listen, if we think about what's going on here, institutions are really kind of at the forefront of crypto-based adoption to really kind of get to that mass adoption point for retail. If institutions really kind of start, looking into the space a little bit more and creating long-standing relationships with some of these big players, like, for example, Hedera, we could start to see adoption streamline through a lot of the smart contract side of things, but also just providing what these clients really want. I mean, when we think about not just organizations, not just banks, not just any of these, big players, just the end user. I mean, even banks right now, nobody likes banks because of how inefficient they are. I mean, banks are terrible. Let's just be honest here. But if we start to see the new technologies being adopted, automation becoming a reality as well, because again, a lot of things could very well be automated. They're just still stuck on paper-based processes, and you need somebody there to make sure that they can, look at it, confirm it, and make sure that they could sign off on it. Like, all of that stuff could be automated completely. So when we think about that, we really do look at blockchain-based tools and even DLT-based tools to really kind of not only become a big resource to make sure things are working more efficiently, but also just improve the overall, like workflow, if you will. But outside of that, next up is job creation. So unlocking economic opportunities. We know that right now around DeFi and Web3, there's so many job, opportunities within this industry. In fact, We know that the whole fight against this space from the SEC side cost over, it's like over 100,000 plus jobs that could have, been here in the US, but because of the SEC being anti, crypto, anti-innovation, it completely cut off all of that. So now we have players like Coinbase hiring thousands of new employees in the US because of the new SEC. Again, the job creation here is massive, especially around DeFi and Web3. And then, of course, next up, the promise of tokenization, neighborhood revitalization. So again, when we transform the way that these asset classes are, treated, it doesn't need to be how efficient it is to buy or sell or trade a stock. No, it's as simple as how easy it is to just do basic services or, basic things like buying or selling or, just listing a house. I mean, all of this stuff that we have around traditional markets, a lot of it is still based on and we're talking about decades and decades old processes. So improving all of that, all of a sudden you can improve everything. When you tokenize things, you have more accessibility, you have a lot more liquidity, you have a lot more investors being able to access those things. Because again, with tokenization, you no longer have these obstacles in the way of you where you have to have this much money or you're, capped at this much that you have to have. And no, all of a sudden you could just allocate like 1% and you could own 1% of something. Like tokenization opens up so much more. And all of this is based around DeFi, the future of finance. The future of finance is being disrupted, right now from Web3. DeFi, DLT, and tokenization, all of these things that we talk about, they're not just buzzwords. DLT opens up so much around these traditional markets that are worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. But it's anything. When we think about, we always talk about these big problem areas around like the SME financing or somebody going and getting a loan, for an example. All this stuff changes around DeFi. A lot of people complain that they can't get a loan to, start a business. But then all of a sudden banks are giving out these massive loans to, teenage kids going to college for a degree that they don't even know that they like or want. And all of a sudden they're trapped in that debt. Why can't business loans be given to, those same teenagers that have a bright idea that maybe could become the next big, Bill Gates or something? That is actually available through DeFi. DeFi unlocks those opportunities. So when we think about the future of finance, when we think about what's happening around the space, there is so much opportunity here. And players like Hedera are becoming a piece of the future of finance. And it's very clear by, the names that they're working with, the networking that they're doing. I mean, all these big events, we talk about these big events, not just because like, oh yeah, they're, big events, people are going to be talking at them and networking. No, they're also events that provide an insight on how disruptive the actual tech is and what's possible with this tech. We know tokenization is here. We know tokenization is happening. But to really understand how big of a game changer it is, you really look at the problem areas around Web 2 and specifically finance within the Web 2 world and how we could solve all of those inefficiencies and all of those problems with DeFi and tokenization. And then all of a sudden you start to realize just how big of a total addressable market we actually have in front of us. I mean, this is so significant, and it's something, it's the same reason why I've always said, like, this space is so early. When we think about, crypto being around like a $3 trillion, market cap, or even HBAR sitting at about roughly $8 billion market cap, we're still extremely early on this tech. We're still extremely early on this market as well for where it is headed. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.